In Chapter 4, Part 2, we will continue to discuss the connection between addiction and the nervous system by taking a closer look at specific cells and chemical pathways. This is also the area where new research continues to be conducted, which helps increase our understanding regarding the complexity of addiction within the nervous system. Two types of cells are found within the nervous system. We will start first with glial cells because these have generally received less attention as they were first believed to be less significant in the study of addiction. That has changed as there is now more understanding regarding the importance of glial cells. These are cells which make up between 80 to 90% of the brain. Initially, they were thought to take a back seat to the flashier neurons, but we now know the vital contributions of these cells. Listed on this slide are the specific contributions. And please note, glial cells are now recognized as playing a central role in addiction and mental health, and more research continues to be conducted in this area. Moving on to the neurons, these are the cells that are responsible for analyzing and transmitting information. As presented in the text, the specific regions all contribute to the communication, known as neurotransmission, that occurs between neurons. Stored within neurons are neurotransmitters, which are viewed as vital chemical messengers. Looking specifically at addiction issues, there are 7 main neurotransmitters generally studied. These are dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, endorphins, glutamate, and acetylcholine. Looking at each neurotransmitter, we start first with what are considered the trifecta of neurotransmitters with addiction, as they overlap and interact in ways that significantly impact areas related to mood, attention, and cognitive functioning. These 3 are dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. Dopamine is considered to be the neurotransmitter that is affected by all psychoactive substances, as well as a key component in behavioral or process addictions. Dopamine is a component of the reward properties discussed earlier by stimulating the reward pathway. However, please be aware that more research and information is needed to understand the complexity involved with the system and dopamine itself. Next is serotonin, which is connected to areas such as mood, sleep, desire, and impulse. We see this neurotransmitter to be heavily at work with stimulants and certain hallucinogens. The last of the 3 is norepinephrine, which again deals with mood but is also involved with movement, memory, and sensory processing. More specifically, it is a major contributor to the fight, flight, or freeze response, as well as general anxiety responses. It can be an asset because it helps to keep us alert and able to act in what may be perceived as a dangerous situation. The major substances impacting this neurotransmitter are stimulants. Looking at other neurotransmitters, we also have GABA, which can be seen to have a calming effect. It is often referred to as a break to too much anxiety as it produces sensations of sedation, drowsiness, and relaxation. Depressants such as alcohol and sedatives are seen to impact GABA the most. Next are endorphins, which play a feature role in regulating pain relief and sedation. These also impact the rate of bodily functions. The substances impacting this neurotransmitter the most are opioids. Next, there is glutamate, which is very abundant within the central nervous system. Learning, cognition, and memory are main features of this neurotransmitter. While many substances seem to act on this neurotransmitter, we see some hallucinogens such as PCP, as well as the specific depressant alcohol, to be predominant. Lastly, we have acetylcholine, which is involved in a range of processes related to learning and mood. There are actually 2 subtypes of acetylcholine receptors in a range of substances, including many stimulants, in particular nicotine, as well as some hallucinogens have been implicated as important with this neurotransmitter. Moving on, we also want to take a look at some of the ways substances impact the neurotransmission process. The general impact occurs both in the intoxication and withdrawal process. What we see here are the effects that occur from a particular substance in the intoxication process are generally described as the opposite of what occurs in the withdrawal process. For example, the intoxication process with cocaine can often result in symptoms such as euphoria and excitement, increased energy and alertness, as well as psychomotor activity and agitation. And in the withdrawal process with cocaine, symptoms that are common are fatigue, loss of energy and decreased interest, as well as a sense of a crash, or sometimes referred to as a crash-type depression. When discussing withdrawal and the impact on neurotransmitters, we need to keep in mind both acute withdrawal, again acute meaning in the present and shortly after ceasing use, and post-acute withdrawal syndrome, or PAUS for short. During PAUS, some symptoms commonly reported are anhedonia, or lack of pleasure, difficulty with concentration, as well as problems with memory. This again is an area where more and more research is being generated to fully understand the brain's healing process in recovery. For PAUS, depending on the type of substance or substances used, the length of use, as well as a variety of other factors, symptoms of PAUS as well as the brain's healing process can be often viewed as at least a 3 to 6 month process, but not uncommon to need 9 months to 2 years to achieve optimal functioning levels. Lastly, we want to understand the specific ways psychoactive substances can impact neurotransmitters. While there are many possible ways, there are 3 main ways. The first is to mimic or increase neurotransmitter activity, which is described as being an agonist. Heroin, morphine, as well as nicotine are considered agonists. The second way is to block or reduce neurotransmitter activity, which is being an antagonist. An example of this would be naloxone, which is used to treat opiate overdose. The final way is what we refer to as a reuptake inhibitor. During the neurotransmission process, some residual neurotransmitters can be left in the synapse, or the space between neurons as described in the book and seen on this slide. These neurons will try to make their way back to the original neuron to be reabsorbed. However, with a reuptake inhibitor, this reabsorption is initially blocked, leaving an excess of neurotransmitters to remain in the synapse. An example of this would be cocaine.